There is little doubt. There is little doubt that there is a problem in the African American, Black, colored, Negro, whatever term you want to use. Don't use colored or Negro. Just don't. Community. There is, and it is coming out. It is being, the symptom of it is coming out in our Black young men and our Black youth, not just the young men. And the question that nobody's asking, I saw those kids' pictures on Twitter, X, sorry, and I read the comments. I should never read comments. I should never read comments. I was reading the comments, and what I saw there was a lot of snarkiness and memes, and it's them again. It's the same, that kind of crap. And the problem is with that is that people who are reading it will automatically think that, first of all, people who are commenting are white. The people who are commenting are racist. The people who are commenting are conservative or Republican or Trump supporters. And that perpetuates this: Trump's are racist, Republicans are racist, conservatives are racist, white people are racist. That continues that crap. And when it really shouldn't be that way. What should really happen is that the conservative manner about addressing these issues is just to start talking about them and trying to find out what's actually happening. How did we get here? Here's what I posted. It may be fun for some of you to be snarky and throw rocks. What we're seeing here is a result of an ongoing tragedy that started in the 1960s. Johnson's Great Society robbed Black families of fathers or father figures. Now, 4 or so generations later, this is what we have: a hyper emotional generation of boys and girls, actually, looking for validation from wherever they can find it. Frankly, it saddens me and pisses me off, really, when we see this. When we see these people posting unveil racist tropes in some attempt to be humorous. We are losing and have lost multiple generations of Americans. This is a national shame. Conservatives must push back and overturn the laws and policies that have created this. That alone should be our focus. Racist memes are not helpful, creative, or funny. They are not. So when we see these kind of things, I always go, well, let's really have a discussion about how do we get here? Because what we know is that these children weren't born to steal cars any more than your kid was born to steal cars. They just weren't. There are long-term reasons why these things keep happening and keep getting worse. I am of the mind that they started way back in the 60s when we started talking about the Great Society and the effect that the Great Society had on the African American community. Now let's talk about it. The Great Society program, there were some programs affecting the African American community. First of all, there was the Civil Rights Act of 64, 65, and 68 that Republicans had a really big hand in, by the way, for the good or the bad. Let's remember, for the good or the bad. It outlawed some racial segregation and discrimination, secured voting rights for African Americans. Now, I don't think that's actually true. I think that voting rights were secured for African Americans when they became U.S. citizens by the Constitution. Just saying. So it opened some greater political and economic participation, which is really interesting because during Reconstruction was the most active political season for Black people in the country. Not after 64, 65, and 68. more black senators, more black Congress people elected nationally than any other time in history was during Reconstruction, was right after they were freed. Okay, this so-called Economic Opportunity Act of 1964 created Head Start. Now, I know I'm a black conservative that I'm in favor of Head Start. I think Head Start's a good idea, and it seems to have worked because Head Start, unfortunately, used to do the job that a lot of black parents either wouldn't do or couldn't do. I was born in 1960. My mother graduated from high school. There were a lot of people like me, kids like me, whose parents had not graduated from high school. So the very basic things that I needed to start school in kindergarten, they weren't getting, which is interesting because a lot of, because I grew up in another state and in a place where that was more racially diverse. And I mean, that means there were more white kids there. That's what that means. And it seemed to be that, it's hard to remember uh, looking back some 55 years when I was, or golly, 60 years now when I was 5 years old. If my classmates were trailing behind me, I don't believe they were. I don't get the sense that they were. I think that we all sort of knew all the basic stuff in kindergarten. That isn't the case anymore. After the Civil Rights Act, after the Great Society, these things were not being related to young kids getting into kindergarten. So Head Start, a program for 4-year-olds, I guess, getting people, getting the little kids juiced up to enter kindergarten. Good idea. Good idea. Not what they're teaching now, but getting them their colors and numbers and basic math facts and basic reading facts. So those sort of things are, using phonics to figure out how to read English. Good idea. Good idea. Job Corps. A lot of people my age got their first job through Job Corps. Job Corps provided monies, federal monies, taxpayer dollars, to pay me to work a summer job at my school. I believe that my wife had a summer job at her school too when she was in high school, and those monies came out of those programs, out of the Economic Opportunity Act of '64, and a lot of us benefited because we had a little job. We didn't make a whole bunch of money. I think it was minimum wage, which is not minimum, which was $2.65 more an hour than I was making otherwise. And I got to pick my job. We'll talk about that later. Now, I don't know about the community action programs, the CAPS, because I didn't participate in that. But those two things, I was a participant of and benefited from. So it did provide some economic opportunities. I mean, I wasn't the head breadwinner of my house by especially imagination. Don't get it twisted. It provided some nice money for a kid who was, 14 or 15, 16, 15, 16 and 17. That's what I had. Yeah, that was cool. I got to pay for my cap and gown. I got to buy a yearbook. Yeah, that kind of thing. It also started Medicaid and Medicare. Some would say that was the beginning of socialized medicine, but it provided health care for elderly and low income individuals. And it says it provided African American people had less access to health care, access to health care. Maybe, but at what cost? And it expanded AFD. Here's the deal. It expanded AFDC, aid to families with dependent children, and the housing programs. This is when you see an explosion of projects, explosion of housing projects, right? There's a problem though, and we're going to talk about, and you know what that problem. My next question to ChatGPT was this: what were the long-term effects on the African American community? Well, it's of course it's going chat GPT is going to try to paint this thing in this rosy picture. So there was economic mobility versus government dependence. Many African Americans gained access to education, jobs, middle class opportunities due to the Great Society programs. Hmm. Some, I wouldn't say many, but some. However, welfare expansion discouraged work and marriage, leading to higher single mother households and intergenerational poverty. Higher single mother households and intergenerational poverty. Before the Great Society, 25% of Black children were born to single mothers. 25%, which was way too much at the time. Actually, it was less than white folks at the time, but today that number is over 70%. Before the Great Society, 25% of Black children were born to single mothers. Today, that number is over 70%. And a lot of these children that were born to single mothers were folded into other households because it was embarrassing. It was a shame that you had a child out of wedlock. You weren't proud of it. You weren't proud of it. You weren't Sophia in The Color Purple. Show up pregnant and have Mr. say, like you in trouble. I ain't in trouble. Big though. Watch the movie. Find the scene. No. Mm-mm. That didn't happen. Those children were folded into other households. If not adopted by a brother or sister or auntie or your grandmother or even your mother, they grew up calling, that's how we grew up calling, folks, that's how we grew up calling grandma mama. And now it is a badge of honor that 70% of Black children are born to single mothers. That has an impact. Every time you pop one end of a tube with something falls out the other end. Welfare policies penalize actually two-parent households. And this wasn't unintentional. This was intentional, making it financially advantageous for single mothers to remain unmarried. Everybody argues that this is weakened the traditional family structure, which has been strong even through segregation, even through the hardest times, Jim Crow and before, lynching, all the stuff that you hear about. The strongest unit in the country, in this country, was the Black family. And then the Black church. And it would seem to me that some people just weren't having that. It just weren't having that. They weren't. So because of the poverty, especially in the inner cities, that unfortunately led to more crime. The war on poverty didn't solve crime. In fact, the crime surged in the 70s and 80s, leading to of course, the mass incarceration policies of the 90s, led by people like Joe Biden. Like anything, I guess you can argue, well, there were some good things, and I did. I tried to be fair. I like the idea. I like the idea of Head Start if it does what it's supposed to do, and I'm a beneficiary, and so was my wife of Job Corps. If it does what it's supposed to do. However, what else has this wrought? What else has this wrought? Well, we just mentioned that we talked about the diminished role of black men in the black family due to the Great Society's impact. Okay. Before the Great Society in the 1960s, the black family structured, despite systemic racism, was relatively stable. In 1960, over 80% of black children lived in two-parent households. 80%, more than white folks. A strong family unit helped maintain resilience and economic mobility, even under the hardest situations. However, after the Great Society, programs expanded welfare, became the daddy in the house, changed economic conditions, the role of the black men in the family has begun to shift dramatically. Here we go. The welfare system and the quote, man in the house rule. Aid to families with dependent children, AFDC, expanded in the 60s, giving more financial assistance to single mothers. Many welfare programs penalized marriage. If a man was present in the home, families could lose benefits. This, of course, created an incentive for fathers to be absent, leading to the rise of fatherless households. The social worker would show up at the house and ask point blank, does a man live here? And the answer better be no. And they would ask the children, they'd look around, see if there was any men's shoes under the bed, men's clothes in the closets. Because the last thing they wanted was a stable family unit. Because the assumption was, this is sort of the weird part. The assumption was that if there was a black man in the house, there's a man in the house, then the family could or should be able to, especially then, to be able to sustain itself not on public assistance. Only way you can get money is that if that man is not in the house. So the long-term effects, in 1965, again, 25% of black children were born out of wedlock. And by the 80s, that number jumped to 60%, and today it's over 70%. Of all the things that the Great Society programs did not do, it did not focus on job creation for black men. Because at the same time, deindustrialization in the 70s and 80s were happening. We saw the beginning of the Rust Belt. We weren't making steel. We weren't making cars. We weren't making this. We weren't making that. Right. So there was massive job losses in manufacturing, and manufacturing was a field that you could get into. You could learn to turn a screw. Yes, it was mind-numbing, but you could support your family on it. The economic situation in the country was that you could support your family on, and you got dirty and it was dangerous. You turned that screw all day long for 20 years, but you could support your family on. Those jobs were going away. Either they were being shipped overseas or technology was replacing those jobs. And because of the lack of educational opportunities, and there was no job training or job creation for a lot of those men, they ended up being unemployed. So many young black men without stable work struggle to provide for families, leading to higher rates of single parent households. Because if I can't provide a house, if there's an opportunity to get money for my wife and the kids, then I can't be here. So there was a bigger incentive not to be there. So the long-term effects are unemployment among black men remains consistently higher than white men still. Lack of economic stability reduced marriage rates and increased out-of-wedlock births. And now we move on to the 70s and 80s. So, of course, in response to a rising crime in the 70s and 80s, harsh drug laws like the 1994 crime bill, thank you, Joe Biden, the 1994 crime bill, thank you, Joe Biden, led to mass incarceration of black men. Many fathers were removed from households, making it even harder for black families to stay intact. The incarceration rate for black men skyrocketed, leaving many children without fathers. So when I hear that when you deport people who come here illegally, you're breaking up families. We've been breaking up families in this country for a long time, like the 1994 crime bill. Thank you, Joe Biden. Over 1 in 3 Black men born after 2001 will experience incarceration at some point in their lives. 33% of Black men born after 2001 will experience incarceration at some point in their life. Are the absence of fathers led to higher youth crime and high school dropouts? Okay, let me get through this. So there was, when all this happens, if there's cultural shifts and the image of Black fatherhood, Black fatherhood. The civil rights era in 1960s celebrated Black family strength. That's why people got dressed up. That's why, you go out and you look good. You don't let anybody look at you and think that you're poor or you're dirty. You know that song by Stevie Wonder, "Living for the City"? Her, there's a line in it that says her clothes were old, but never were they dirty. To walk to school, they got up. They have to get up early. Exactly. I think, and then the rhyme is, her clothes were old, but never were they dirty. But it was a strength there. So by the 80s and 90s, mainstream media often portrayed Black fathers as absent, deadbeat, criminal, reinforcing the same stereotypes. Now the mainstream media, who are saying all along that they are champions of Black people, they're champions of the underdog, are portraying Black fathers in general, but Black fathers is not being there. The joke was, do you even know who your daddy is, right? Prince of Bel Air. One of the most emotional scenes in that particular show's history is when Will sees his absent father, because the absent father comes to visit Bel Air, right? Will thinks that he's going to go off with his dad and they're going to be together and they're going to go on this big adventure. And his dad says, I can't take you with me. I can't take you with me. He's leaving again. He's deserting Will again. And Will freaks out. And I remember the line saying, why don't he want me? Man, why don't he want me? So now you have, and I remember that because it's really important, because what you have now is a bunch of Black boys raised by women who are hyper emotional. And that is saying, and I'm not saying anything negative about boys being raised by single moms, because most single moms do do an incredible job. But their viewpoints and how they approach certain things is from a maternal or feminine viewpoint. Unfortunately, a lot of it's hyper emotional. So what you get is these kids I showed you earlier, these boys, looking for validation, and girls too. They're looking for validation. Boys look for validation in gangs. Nothing's more validating than say, hey man, you all right? You okay? We got you. You're part of this family. This is what we do because we deserve it. This is how we make our bags, how we make, it's how we get our cheddar. All the phrases that happen. I think of all the phrases for money that I like the most is cheddar. Cheddar, money. Cheese for the rat. I don't know. I like that one. I don't like that one best. I don't know why. But you get into these gangs, and these gangs are families, and you can't get out. They are with you 24/7. You go to bed, you're in the gang. You wake up, you're in the gang. You go to school, you're in the gang. You go to jail, you're in the gang. You go to the store, you're in the gang. Everywhere you go, you are part of that family. And if you follow the rules, you're never out of the family. Some people are in the family for as long as they live. Unfortunately, in a lot of those families, because of their activities, they don't live as long as they need to, or don't live as long as they should have lived. This is important how these things happen. And now we're starting to see that hyper emotionality that's also pushed by mainstream media in our Black girls. Starting to see the same things. I'm going to show you a video here in a second of how this actually, unfortunately, plays out. Watch this. Comment below.
Hello.
Yes.
You have your ID on you? No?
What am I getting pulled over for, though?
You made an improper turn onto Arlington from 4th?
No, I didn't.
Okay. When you
wasn't even behind me. You were behind me going down Chittagate, and then you turned down there. You've been following me. You really hit a U because you drove past my grandmother's house, and then you hit a U-turn for no reason.
Okay.
I'm going the speed limit. Like I did not hit no improper turn.
I didn't say you were speeding. I said you made an improper turn.
I didn't hit no improper turn.
Okay, can I explain it to you, and maybe you'll understand?
Because you pulled me over for no reason. I didn't do. So you don't even know me.
I don't know you. You're right.
Right. So what did you following me for? And you're following me from Van Everett all the way down here. Like that is crazy. What are you following me for?
Okay. You don't have an ID on you?
No, I don't.
How old are you?
It don't even matter.
It does matter.
It don't because you really was scouting too. Like what did I do to you?
What's your name? What's your name?
Samarion.
How do you spell that?
Samariyon.
And your last name?
Peterson.
Peterson? Do you have a license? Do you have a license? No?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Do you have a license?
She's 13, 15 years old.
Okay. No, she doesn't have a license.
I'm ready to go.
Okay, just hold tight.
Because that's not like what? And then I know it's never 2 cars.
It's never what?
2 cars.
It's almost always 2 cars. I don't even know why you got stopped.
That's what I'm saying. He don't even know why I got stopped. He said I made a proper turn. How are you on 4th? And then I'm on whatever street that is on Robertson, and you see me turn.
Where'd you turn from?
From off. What's that street called? 5th Avenue. So how did you see me turn from 5th? You been following me since Ben Everett.
Which way did you turn?
I turned right.
You turned right?
Yes.
Oh, did you come all the way? What lane did you end up in? So you turned right on Arlington from 5th?
Yeah, somebody call my grandma or something, I'm ready to go because I really see no point in sitting right
Hey,
now.
honey.
You're being
Huh?
this is a traffic stop.
So, the more that you are cooperative,
the
easiest.
What did you supposed to do? Like, you let me out the car or something?
No.
Get away from the car. Let me out.
No.
Yes.
If you get out, you're going in cuffs. You understand me?
I don't care because you are looking.
Is that what you want?
Your phone like
Stop.
mine.
Just relax.
Y'all is irritating
Would you
me.
relax?
Y'all is irritating me because you're looking for a reason to follow me. There's no reason why you're following me from Van Everett all the way up.
I don't know you.
I'm not
at all.
So it's about the man I was talking about.
Well, let me.
Sir Sergeant, hon.
I don't care.
The calmer you are, the better it's going to work out for you, okay?
It's already bad. Like what?
Why is it bad?
Because I'm getting pulled over.
Okay.
22, 15 to 22. Go ahead.
Yeah, like you followed me in there. It's so-called a problem yesterday, and then I wasn't even outside yesterday. So you're looking for any reason. Any reason. Us is crazy because you didn't pull up on me. I was at the hospital with my little brother. As soon as you see the car pull off, so you just scouting. You're just.
What we saw is a completely out of. It was completely out of context reaction to getting pulled over. We've all been pulled over for one reason or another. Some were sketchy because some crap is sketchy, and others were perfectly within their rights. Like when I'm driving my car and my tag is expired. When I make an improper turn and my license has expired. Yeah, I may find out about it. Yeah. Other times I'm like, or when I'm not wearing my seatbelt. Those are all 3 times that I got stopped. I don't really, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't really remember a time where I got pulled over and hassled for, actually I do remember one time, for no reason. One time. And I survived. And obviously, I was a young black person at the time. I was less than 30. I survived it because I did not act over emotionally. And you saw that little girl. It was immediate defensive. It was immediate screaming and yelling. It was immediate this big vomiting of emotion, right? Because that's who she thinks that she's supposed to be. When she could have just answered the questions. The fact is that an improper turn doesn't get you arrested. An improper turn gets you a ticket, and then you move on. And you may go to court. You may pay the ticket, pay the fine, or you may go to court and they throw it out. That's what that is. You weren't speeding. It was an improper turn. So I'm going to write you a citation for an improper turn. That's it. All we got to do. I need your license. What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. This is not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Improper turn? I even, I guess in some states it's a moving violation that may impact your automobile insurance. It might be, but it's not a big deal. And what happens a lot of times in improper turns, and I do this all, and I watch this all the time. This isn't a complete aside, is that when you turn right, a lot of people, you turn right on a 2-lane road, you need to turn right and stay in the right lane, and then change lane to the left. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people turn right and swing out into that left lane. And that could have been explained to her. Hey, here's how I know how you normally do it, but you're not supposed to do it this way. Do it this way. It's a lot safer. The officer never got there. Even when the other officers showed up, they never got there because of the emotional reaction. I don't know if this little girl was being raised by a single mother or not. I do not know. But what I do know that over 70% of children are, or black children are. White folks, you're catching up. This is one way you don't want to be like black people, right? That's a problem. Don't you think? Anyway, tell me what you think about this video. This is more of a long form video that really is not topical, I guess, and in time. Hopefully it'll be some evergreen content, something to spark discussion. I don't need angry vitriol. I need you to be thinking about what you're saying and what real solutions. I think the conservative way, especially for black conservatives, is not to demean other black people. That doesn't get us anywhere. What actually will get us somewhere is to start pushing back on laws and policies that have created these problems. That's what we have to do. Anyway, I got to get out of here, maybe for somebody else. So until we see you again, go out there and learn to love somebody. And for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. My name is Willie Lawson. This has been the Morning Report. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.